At 60 years old, I realized I traded my life. The career that I started on, that I loved, I traded it for six figures. That at 60, I now realize it's all been a lie. And I can't get that time back.
Your job is not your life.
I worked really hard to make money and it wasn't worth the trade-out.
What did you sacrifice as a result?
Time.
Today we're going to listen to a lot of old people and their regrets about working all their lives for things and corporations that don't worth it. Without wasting your time, let's get into it.
I want to share with you some of my life experiences to help understand how I got to where I am today as a person. You know, when I was in my 40s, I sort of looked back to my 30s and my 20s, and I sort of wondered, what the fuck? Where did everything go? My life has changed so much. Where did the time go? And you know, in that time, you feel invincible. You can do anything. In your 20s, you drank, you work, you played hard, and you got up in the morning and went to work. You know, that was your life. You had no problems. You were, well, I was single. I was in relationships, but I wasn't in a real permanent relationships. Love was sort of up and down. And you're sort of making plans for the future and sort of, I'm going to do this, I want to have that. And then suddenly you look back, you reach 40 and go, what happened? And before you know it, the time has passed. And this is when you realize that time isn't endless. You know, every second that passes, every minute that passes, we're never going to get back. And you know, when I think back, you sort of, in that period, in that time, you're sort of wasting it on petty things, on materialistic things, a new car or a new second-hand car in my situation, arguing with people that you love and care about, arguments at job, trying to chase that promotion that didn't make any difference in your life anyway. You start to realize, was it worth it? And we tend to chase happiness in all the wrong places. In jobs that we feel toxic, that we're not happy in, but yet we stick in there because we find ourselves in a financial situation that we're too afraid to move from.
What is the biggest mistake that you have made in your life that you have learned a valuable lesson from?
Working crazy hours and life when I was younger and not really getting total enjoyment out of my kids when they were younger, traveling too much and working too long hours. That's a regret.
So looking back, what would you have done differently? Like, let's say someone is,
Probably
around
more
that
family
age.
time and less work time.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone younger than you, what would you say?
Make sure you do what you enjoy doing. Don't just get a job. Have a passion for what you do.
When I was in my 20s, after graduating college and serving in the military, I started a career working in mental health. I worked at a psych hospital as a nursing assistant. I loved it. I think I made maybe $7.50 an hour. And then I got a job working as an intensive case manager, mostly with people who had schizophrenia, a lot of younger guys. I loved it. I was helping people. I was helping families. I was helping them get their medication, housing, budget their disability. I was helping families and people have a better life. I made maybe $18,000 a year. I could barely afford my apartment, which I think was maybe $350, $450. I had a car payment, maybe $275. But I thought that as a single person, I thought I would probably end up living alone most of my life, and I did. But I realized making that kind of money, I couldn't survive. You know, I was worried, and people all around me, they kind of made fun of me for doing social work type job. You know, everybody, it was like the 80s, early 90s, everybody was pointing me toward corporate America. That's where the security was, the real career, the opportunity, the chance to really make some money and be okay. So I listened, I gave in. I got a job at Prudential Financial, and eventually I got into testing software. It was a good career. I'm 60, I'm making, 6 figures. But guess what? It's a freaking bloodbath right now. There's no security. Pensions went right down the toilet. I got laid off from that job at Prudential Financial when I was 40 years old. They were going from a mutual company to publicly traded. So all about the stock prices. Now where I work, private equity owned, heads on the chopping block every day. And I look at my life, my career. Okay, I have a house and I don't know. I don't feel like I have stability in this crazy ass world.
How old are you?
64.
What is something you thought was really important when you were younger, but as you got older, you realized it wasn't that important?
Making money. If you look back at life, the things that matter are not money. Things that matter aren't what you get out of life. Things that matter are what you give to life. Kids, family, friends.
What is something you regret the most in your life?
Chasing things, material things that really don't matter as much as people. Life is a whole balance between trying to get ahead in life, get the stuff, keep the food on the table, keep the kids happy, keep a roof over your head. And at the end of the day, when you're gone, that stuff's still there for other people. When you see those signs for estate sales, there's a bunch of shit in there that's going for nickels on the dollar. Somebody worked his ass off to get that stuff, and it was valuable to them. But when they're gone, it's nickels on the dollar to somebody else.
Why are people so much more important than things?
I don't know. Lose a person and lose your car. Which one hurts you more? You can always find another car. You can't always find another brother, sister, cousin.
So if you could go back in time, knowing what you know today, and give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would you tell him?
Just live life, man. Have fun.
So, what is the best career move that I never made? Creating a work character, a work persona. A version of me who clocked in like a sitcom extra, right? Mildly upbeat, slightly competent, emotionally unavailable enough to survive the plot twists. Someone who could smile in a meeting, nod at the craziness, and not take any of it home. Like a motivational bobblehead who nods politely but internally says, absolutely not. Bonus points if you can blink, what a freaking joke, in Morse code while you do it. Instead, I kept showing up as real me. The one who over-explained in emails to seem collaborative, right? With 3 disclaimers, a smiley face, and a joke about tacos just so no one thought I was mad. What does Pac-Man put on his tacos? Guaca, 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 guacamole. I was the one who said yes, because silence made me nervous. I was the one that thought if she brought her whole self to work, she'd be valued for it. I was not. Here's the truth. When they say bring your whole self to work, what they mean is bring your whole useful self. Bring your resilience, your adaptability, your sure I can take that on reflex. Leave the rest, your boundaries, your grief, your doubt. Leave that all at the door. Looking back, I can see this now. There were people that I worked with that actually did this. So while I was bending over backwards trying to be the MVP, they were just quietly killing it. They weren't the loud ones. They weren't the ones on every committee or replying all at midnight or staying late to fix what could have been fixed 5 managers ago. They just had boundaries, like knowing when to log off, when to ghost a meeting, and when to pretend their video wasn't working. While I was stapling my self-worth to every deliverable, they were already in the parking lot drinking their iced coffee with their unbothered peace and a face that says, huh, sounds like a you problem. Now, at the time, I thought that they were underperformers, right? Now I realize that they just weren't auditioning. They have freedom. So build the work persona. Work you, filtered you, emotionally bulletproof you. Version 3.0 with 40% fewer feelings and just enough detachment to still be considered polite. Now, if I'd had a persona, maybe I wouldn't have spent so many years thinking that my inability to thrive in chaos meant that I wasn't cut out for success. You still show up, you'll still care about your work, but now there's a layer between who you are and how they score you. If the job's a performance, then damn, wear the uniform and know your lines. If you build this version of you, work you won't cry in the car after your shift. Work you won't spiral when her boss takes credit for her ideas. She's not fake, she's not edited. She's just real enough to function, right? Distanced enough to clock out and let it go, but not enough to forget who you are. Don't share details about your personal family problems because too many people are gossips and they'll use that information against you. No to staying late more than twice a month. My time is precious even if I'm not doing anything. No to working through lunch more than once a week because I'm not impressing anyone with my low blood sugar. No checking in on vacation.
Raise your hand if you're over 50, you've worked most of your life, and you're done. You don't want to work anymore.
Friends, it's Dr. Casey. I was scrolling through the internet this morning and I saw a PSA that someone had posted. It said, PSA, 20 years from now, the only people who are going to remember that you stayed late at work are your kids. And I thought this was genius. I'd like to explain why. The most commonly heard regret that I hear from people at the end of life is, I wish I would have worked less and played more, or worked less and spent more time with my family. I know me, myself, as a nurse, I'm guilty of this too. You know, at work, they really have a way of guilting you into feeling like you need to stay or you should stay. And so I have missed family functions and precious time with my kids because I picked up work for people who don't even remember it now, and it hasn't even been 20 years yet. So my advice to you, my friends, is to make sure that you don't make your career or your work your number one priority. Make your life your number one priority. Enjoy life, enjoy your family, do the fun stuff, and make the memories.
Well, I finally did it. After thinking about it for years, not having the guts to do it, I gave my 2-week notice last week. I've got 4 12-hour night shifts left and I'm done. I've worked full time for 40 some years now. I'm 58 years old now and I'm just done. It's kind of funny, I typed out my resignation letter last Monday and I sat there for 45 minutes before I hit send. But I did it. I worked for years at jobs that weren't bad, but it's like you just made enough to get by. Then here in the last 10 years, I've made pretty decent money. In fact, this year I was on pace to make 6 figures for the first time. But I've figured out that it's not really the money. Your time is way more important than the money. You know, I always thought I'd have to have $1 million stashed away to retirement, and I was actually on pace for that at one time. I had a pension, my 401k was doing great, but life happens, you know. We had the crash of 08 that took away probably 1/3 of my savings in my 401k, and then working for big corporations, you know how they do you. They took away our pension. And then you got a divorce that takes away a little more of that 401k, and just life happens, you know. If I'd want to keep slaving away until I was 65, I could probably get up to that million mark again, but it's just not worth it. What am I going to do? Make it to 65 and get that $1 million and then retire and die in a couple of years? I want to get out there and live while I still can.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but there's one thing that I avoided all those years I was working. I'm kind of paying the price now. I did not prioritize my health. And now that I have the time, I'm retired, I am going to the doctor constantly. All those issues that simmer under the surface really come back with a vengeance. Make sure you get to the doctor. If you know someone that's not going to the doctor, share this with them.
My wife was in a job for 18 years and went out on her own and is a lot happier.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, it might just be you. I am Geraldine, I'm 65 years of age and I'm originally from Ireland. I moved to Spain 12 months ago and quickly discovered that my money is just not going far enough. It never does. And it never has done. If you're like me and you've worked all your life for very little and have nothing to show for it financially, join the boat. I am fed up. I'm fed up working for somebody else to make somebody else's dreams come true.
That there's more to life than working, and that there's a different journey ahead of you, better than anything that you're experiencing on the job right now. And so let me begin by stating the obvious. Number one, your job is coming to an end one day, one way or another. No matter how much you pour yourself into your career, how much you enjoy your job, how loyal you are to the company, one day your job will come to an end. You're going to retire. Your health is going to force you to step down. There could be a layoff, or you could simply be replaced by somebody half your age for half your wage. And when that day comes, when your job or career comes to an end, guess what else? The company just moves on. That's just reality. That's the way that it works. And while we all know intuitively that our jobs are going to come to an end one day, there are some reasons why we seem to ignore this and it seems to fade into the distance. And one of the reasons that we lose sight of this reality is because society often equates our identity with our career. I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a skilled journeyman, I'm a factory worker, I'm a framer, I'm a carpenter. And when so much of our life is tied up in our work, it's hard to let go at any time. And then, of course, there's something called the golden handcuffs. When you get up into the peak earning years of your career, maybe you're in your upper 50s or early 60s, you got the steady paycheck, you're at the peak of your earnings, the wages are good, you've got a steady income, you have the benefits, you have a package, and all of these things combined together supports your current standard of living that makes leaving work feel virtually impossible. I mean, who wants to walk away from that kind of money? And the golden handcuffs keeps us trapped on the job sometimes. And another reason that we lose sight of this reality that our job is going to come to an end one day is simply because there is the comfort of the routine. Daily work becomes a habit. And that habit and the routine and the comfort of the routine causes us to just postpone the inevitable in making the hard decision, and we forget that there's more to do and there's more to life than what's going on inside the office. I want to tell you that there is a great big world out there with many roads that you can travel, and virtually all of them are better than anything that you're doing in the office right now. And just remember this, the real reason that you're working is so that one day you can gain financial independence and get out of the rat race or get away from the daily grind. The last thing that you want to do is stay on the job so long until your health fails, or even worse, you simply just drop dead on the job.
I really regret how hard I worked in my 20s, and there's some reasons for that. So before I was the CEO of Centurion Trial Attorneys, I was a firefighter, and that's all I ever wanted to be. And as a young man, I thought that working extra hours, spending every holiday at the station, and sacrificing so much would bring me joy and fulfillment. And the opposite is what happened. First of all, it was hell on my body. I'm still paying for it. I didn't make that much money. And here's the worst part. This was the highest price that I paid for chasing that dream career. My dad at the home, it's got a bunch of family pictures, outings, vacations, reunions, things like that. And I am not in most of those pictures. I go to my own father's house and I'm not in those pictures with my family. And what did I get for that sacrifice? A few $100 a day, tops. It was not worth it. It's not worth it.
Just one more year. So I just one more yeared myself into working until I was 68, and I'm here to implore you not to repeat the mistake I made. I should have retired when I was much younger. 62 probably would have been a good number. 63 is when I lost a job, and that probably was ideal timing, but I didn't do it. And I'm here to tell you that as the voice of experience that if you can retire financially and you're able to do it, then you should, because the one thing you can't get back is time.
I once worked someplace that called itself a village, which should have really been the first clue that things were about to kind of go cult adjacent. I'm not going to name names about where this is, but if you want to figure it out, you probably really could. So for orientation, they brought in people from all over the United States for like this 3-day long event. It was called Academy, and hundreds of people were there. And it was kind of the corporate version of like a Coachella onboarding that happened like in a hotel ballroom. The whole thing was just this like relentless hype. That's all it was. It was doing skits. It was executives in a band. I shit you not. There was a band. Imagine looking up on the stage and like seeing your boss ripping through a cover of Don't Stop Believing wearing a name badge. And then it gets fun. The CEO actually rode in to the ballroom on a horse, okay? In full Three Musketeers uniform with his sword drawn. People freaking lost their minds, okay? I remember sitting there looking around and I thought I was living in some kind of alternate reality. People were screaming like it was the Beatles in '64, right? They were crying, their hands up in the air like they wanted to touch them. It was so bizarre. And I was sitting there thinking, looking around going, oh my God, this is the biggest Kool-Aid kegger that I've ever seen. But I still had to clap because, you know, rent. He got up on stage and announced that we weren't employees. Oh no, we were citizens of his village. And we had to shout one for all and all for one while we pretended to have our swords drawn, right? One for all and all for one. The Academy wasn't training, it was indoctrination. We spent all week doing trust falls, team building games, group chants and songs. We actually had to write our own chant and perform it at the end of Academy. So it was kind of like a corporate show choir, but really, really sad. Like I said, they called it a village. We weren't employees, we were teammates. And by Wednesday, I was genuinely wondering if I was gonna have to sacrifice a goat to get out of there. They gave us these little like Three Musketeers hat and said that they symbolized our lifelong commitment to, I guess, I don't know, quarterly goals. I don't know. And the worst part of it all is I can still see it. Everyone was like genuinely moved, like they had found their purpose, right? Meanwhile, I'm in the back wondering how long I could hide in the bathroom without someone noticing.
At this point in the video, you might be wondering, does that mean working is a bad thing? No. Does that mean people shouldn't work till they are 70? No. I think the point most of these older people realized are three. First, life is more than work, so a life dedicated to work and work alone might lead to a lot of regret. Second, doing what you love might make your work worth it by the time you're 60 or 70, even if you never retire. But why don't we try to pursue what we love? Well, we usually feel secured under a corporation than if we are alone in the world. This woman has more to say on that.
No, there's no security. That's all BS illusion, you know? The young people say, got to get off the matrix or out of the matrix. I 100% agree. I regret giving up that career doing the social work and helping people. Pretty much every day at this point, I try to figure out, can I get back to it? Can I do it? I worked in group homes. Yeah, I traded it all. I gave it all away for like a freaking dream, a possibility of, I don't even know what. Like, who gives a damn, you know, about the money? At the end of the day, we're all heading in the same direction, okay? And it's the ground, one way or another. You can go in whole or you can go in with the ashes. And even that, at the end of the damn day, it seems like we're nothing but, you know, money in somebody's coffers. Come on, you know? What have I done, you know? I've made money for companies. I've worked on projects that either made millions or helped the company save millions. Nobody gives a damn. I'm not proud of that. I don't know what I've done, you know? I've helped create some software that works, whatever. Has it made the world a better place? No, I don't think so. Not even a little bit. Maybe it made it a worse place. My God. I don't know. I just would put a message out there to the young people. If you hear these birds? I'd put a message out there to the young people. Follow your dreams, follow your heart, follow what you love, do what's important to you. And I suspect.
But what if it doesn't work out? Well, everyone at one point has that fear, but what do you do about it? This woman seems to have some good advice.
Hello, my friend. You tell me that you are anxious and afraid of so many things that it paralyzes you. Well, this is a very common thing. There is so much in life to be afraid about, so many challenges, so many dangers, so many difficulties, that it is quite easy to become uptight in the way you live and to restrict your movement more and more. And of course, the paradoxical truth is that the more you restrict yourself in a protective way, and the more you will fear what is out there, and the smaller your world becomes, and the more there will be fears. So by protecting yourself too much, you create bigger fears for yourself. And by going towards some of the difficulties in your life and practicing working with them and stopping being just afraid of them and avoiding them, by practicing that, you're practicing your strength. You're practicing what I would call your existential courage. Now, you don't have to overdo it. You don't have to go find danger and, become counterphobic about it. But it is important to stay flexible and to push yourself, as they like to say, out of your comfort zone every day a little bit, because that keeps you flexible, it keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you existentially alert. And that gives you confidence. That will make you feel that life is more of a game and less of a challenge.
In your life, do what is right, not what is easy. And I want you to think about that. Sometimes we take the easy route because it's, less complicated and good for us and maybe not really good for everybody else. But I want you to take the other road. I want you to do what is right. Whether it's in your college, whether it's with your friends or your workplace or your family. Don't take the easy road, but just sit down and think about it. And maybe the easy road is the right road. But don't take the easy road and always think about taking the right road. Now, I know a lot of you probably have had circumstances in your life when you have had to make that decision. And maybe when you were younger, you made those decisions because it was easier for you. But now that you're mature and you've lived a little bit longer, maybe you realize that that was a mistake and you should have taken the right road. I have always tried to take the right road, although it has not always been easy. And mainly, I think probably the biggest thing that I did is when my husband became ill, I gave up a thriving career on television. It was so hard for me because I absolutely loved what I did. I loved getting up and going to work every single day. I loved it. But I knew that when I lost my husband and when I was the main caretaker of my children, I knew the right road was to be with them and not to have them lose both their mother and their father. I knew the right road was to stay with them and to raise them and to be able to have some type of work that I could support us all, but yet that I could be there with them more. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was what I should do. It was the right road, and it's because I loved them. So that is the first thing that I would say to my granddaughter or to anyone. Always try to take the right road. When you're younger, weren't we full of dreams? Oh, I can remember the dreams that I had were absolutely maybe out of touch for when I was living in this small industrial town in Ohio. But dreams are only dreams until you take action. Maybe it takes you a long time to realize that dream. It took me 50 years to realize my dream of being on the stage in New York City and acting or being in film or being on television. It took me 50 years, but I never let go of that dream back in my mind. The time frame may not be the one that is meant for you, but if you have a dream, don't only dream that dream, but take action to try to make it.
A few days ago, I saw this news about an Indian billionaire advocating that people should be working 72 hours per week. This is another reason why most people feel guilty for working less and spending time with family and friends. Society and sometimes the billionaire you work for simply want you to keep working for them.
I have a personal friend, is a woman about my age, and she's probably about 66 or 67, and she's a friend of mine and my wife. She's active, still attractive, and very healthy for her age. And in other words, she's at the peak of her golden years, and she works in a medical practice, and she's on the verge of a retirement, but the practice that she works at has talked her into staying there until she is 70 years old. Now, admittedly, she has a very important job, and what she does makes a lot of difference in people's lives. But they really poured on the guilt, and they said, we really need you to stay for a few more years. No one is as good as you. We could never find a replacement for you. If you leave us, it'll just leave us in a bind here. And you know, when somebody on the job, your employer, says that to you, it's really kind of flattering, because after all, you've worked hard and you've worked years to gain your level of expertise, and when they say something to the tune that you're irreplaceable, it's kind of flattering. But if the truth be told, the reason they want you to stay on is so that you can make their life easier. Not your life, but they want you to stay on so that you can make their life easier. And in the meantime, you are running out of time. We just don't have forever to live, and we need to get out while we still have time.
Finally, and probably the most important point, you see another reason why many people work the job they hate and can never get out of it is that they spend all the money they make and more. Anyway, this man has a very important advice regarding that.
If I could go back in time and teach my 20-something self one very valuable lesson that could have transformed the last 4 decades of my life, it would be this one simple thing: live below your means. Now, I know that sounds really simple and contrite and whatever, and financial gurus tell us to do this all the time, and certainly my parents lived this way. They modeled this for me throughout my life. But I was young, and I was newly married, and I had a couple of kids, and I was stupid. I was just stupid. And we lived way beyond our means for the longest time. And when I think about what it cost me, not money. Money's never been important. Very important. But when I think about the heartbreak and the stress and the anxiety and the lost opportunities and the dreams that never happened because I had strapped us to a debt wheel so massive, there were times we couldn't breathe. Now, you know, at its core, living below your means applies to anyone. Whether you are making $30,000 a year or you're making $300,000 a year, we all need to live within our means. I was making really good money when I was in my 20s. For the time, you know, we're talking about the late 70s, early 80s, I was making a really good living. But I always wanted the next thing. And I don't really know why. I don't know. I think there were times when I was trying to create some kind of happiness in the home that maybe wasn't there. Or maybe I was trying to impress people that I graduated high school with because I didn't think I was very well liked when I was in high school. I don't know the reasons. I know that, you know, most of my money, big money, went to cars. And I would wind up begging my parents for help. It became very quickly begging my mom for help because my dad was gone. And there have been more than a handful of times that my mom has bailed us out of my stupidity. Now, it's easy to understand in today's age why enough never really feels like it's enough. Social media impacts us. It's never been easier to get credit, or at least it wasn't. Maybe it's harder now. But you could go take out a loan for almost anything. And then there is this whole thing about lifestyle creep. You get a little raise, and instead of socking that money away, you start to buy another dinner out, or you take a better vacation, or you think about being able to afford a little more mortgage for a little more house.
You are more than an employee, and you're more than a job title. You are a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a human being who has value on your own. You have dreams, hobbies, and passions, and that's where your real value is, and that is where your happiness is best found.
What did you guys do for a living?
I'm a nurse.
I'm a physician.
Did you love what you did?
If you don't enjoy work, you're really in trouble. Let me tell you.
A lot of people work in jobs they're not happy with.
And you know what? It shows on their face, in their demeanor.
Their attitude.
Yeah. What's your advice to that? How do we do what we love?
Do it.
Do it. You have to adapt. Nothing's going to be a straight line. The world around you changes, and you have to change. If you're an unadaptable person, you're never going to be happy even if you have a good job.
You've got to find out where your true interests are. And it's a lot more fun, even if you don't make a lot of money, to be working in your area of interest